Figured since we're going to do the Batrep right, we might as well show you guys exactly how it works. So here's the German deployment zone, and forgive me if it goes a little slow. I probably won't finish out the whole game, but I will give you an idea of how the first few turns work. So of course terrain is a big part in the game, and there's lots of terrain here, so the terrain rules will be coming into effect. Bocage is one of those things where infantry needs to stop adjacent to before crossing over, unless they started their previous turn adjacent. So being as this is the first turn and they deployed against it, they actually can move their 6 inches over the bocage. Now bocage is typically about 2 inches wide, so what I would recommend doing is measuring from the stand or from the outside of the bocage. A lot of people will measure from the outside. I like to measure from this side just because if you measure from the outside, they've actually moved more than 6 inches because you're not accounting for the width. So I always measure from my stand on the adjacent side and then move from there. So let's go ahead and do that first. So infantry of course gets 6 inches, needing to maintain coherency. These are fearless veterans, so they actually can be up to 6 inches apart. And as I talked about in my other videos, if there's trees in the way and it's not area terrain, just give it a little shift forward. You don't need to take it right off the board. This guy's going to move and stop adjacent to this wall, so he maintains bulletproof cover. Likewise, this guy's going to jump over with him. And then this guy here, measuring from here, is going to jump out just ahead. That's actually the 2IC. So hopefully that all worked out for you. You can see that the Germans have now made an advance. I'm going to just move on a little further. I'm going to work on the moving the tanks over, and then I'm going to move the trucks. It doesn't really matter what order you move your platoons. You just move one platoon, and then you move the second platoon. And you move them as a platoon. Don't move a couple teams and then go to another platoon. It just gets confusing that way as you forget what you've moved and what you haven't. Alright, so keep in mind that German tanks on roads are not hindered by movement, although the Tiger tank itself is a slow tank. So it can only move 8 inches as opposed to the normal or the standard tank movement, which is 12. So a lot of people will measure from the front, and that's fine as long as you remember that the front ends up there. What I typically do, because the facing you can change, I usually measure from the center of the model, dead center, and then I move the center of the model here. That way, if I choose to pivot for whatever reason, I'm pivoting around a central point, and I don't get any additional movement. There is kind of tricky ways that you can measure, and sometimes you forget, and you end up, ½ inch outside of where you should be. But center to center is a good rule of thumb, and that's usually what I do. So there we go. So now I have the 2 Tiger tanks, two regular Tigers up on the bridge, and I'm going to move the infantry in behind. Now, vehicles on roads are a different story altogether. Vehicles, you have to check what kind they are. They're not half-tracked; they're considered wheeled, and these ones here actually go 12 inches. If they were considered Jeeps, then they would go 16 inches. But I'm kind of hindered right now by the fact that I want to stay behind my Tigers. So what I'm going to do is I know that the back one can get as far as here. So as long as he doesn't go any further than there, I should be fine. So what I'm going to do is just scoot these guys right in behind. Keep in mind I have infantry mounted up in these vehicles right now. So here they go, driving along, staying on the road. And really, I don't have much more to do, because if I get down and check lines of sight, I don't think I have any shooting. But I will bring the camera in and show you that. And my infantry is well out of range, so I really don't have much in terms of doing any shooting. But let's have a look at the line of sight and just see what I'm talking about in terms of I don't believe they have any shots this turn.